You appear to be muted, Frank.
I am muted.
There we go.
I can be heard now. Yeah, I'm having some problems with the computer, not liking me too much. Let me see.
I understand that. Mine doesn't like me too much on a lot of occasions these days either, so.
Jeez, like it's unbelievable, really. Nah, I don't like that one. This one? No, I don't like that one either. How about this one? I don't like that one either. How about this one? There we go.
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay, I don't know what's going on with my. It is what it is. Oh, maybe that's what it is. It's too high. There we go. Okay. Oops. Knocked it. All right. So, hey, yeah, working. We'll just this way. Yeah. Pull it back a little bit. Over this way a little bit. Does it look centered? Yeah, I think it does. All right. So, what are we here for again?
Sports, I think.
I gotta say this, and we're gonna start with the Maple Leafs. I'm developing a cough all of a sudden. We're gonna start with the Maple Leafs, and in watching that game last night. Now, I'm saying this in a very positive way. Who the hell were they?
Yeah.
Especially in the third period. Who the hell was that team? I've never seen them before.
Hey, it's interesting. Once you've finally given up all hope at conquering a situation, how differently people can play. I just thought it was rather amusing that it's taking the fact that they have an under 1% chance to make the playoffs to finally get them to loosen up enough to actually play. But coming out and going 0-8 after the Olympic break it was definitely a point of concern. I think we all had a feeling they were going to be sellers at the trade deadline as it was, and turns out they were, but they weren't, because some people couldn't get out of their own way in order to actually make trades. So a couple other potential trades didn't happen. They got return for some of the players that they were looking to move, but I don't think it was all of the return that they wanted. So,
absolutely,
we are where we are with this.
But if you're a Leaf fan, and I know as a viewer of the Maple Leafs, I ask myself, where was this team all year? Because if we were to look and think over the summer, that team that played in the third period last night, I think would have been the team you would have assumed would have started the season. Fair?
Because it's almost like they
changed. That was the culture change, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, before that, it seemed that they were spot on with their culture, especially after their captain went down at the end of the second period. That nothing happened. And it's like, well, that's pretty much the Leafs in a nutshell, right there. They are softer than 10-ply. Their captain gets sidelined by the other team's captain with a knee-on-knee. Nobody does anything. Now, I appreciate that Morgan Riley took some responsibility for that.
It was a qualified responsibility. He should have gone there, but he didn't see what happened until it was too late.
Yeah.
Which, at least he said the words "my fault," which is something you don't hear around Leafville that much.
It's very true.
You don't hear "my fault." But the thing is that they did, and Aaron, for how many years I've been telling you, does that look like the team I've been telling you they need to be? The Darren Freese?
It does. It looks like a team that they desperately needed to be.
Not one that necessarily plays dirty, not one that necessarily fights all the time, right? Just a team that stands up for itself and makes it hard on the other team to play.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that I've go ahead.
I was going to say, the fact of the matter is they didn't do anything to make it hard to play against them for far too long.
Absolutely.
And it's not like they don't have the size to do that sort of thing. They do. They've just never used it.
No. And you know, and again, I hate to reverse back to the core four. The core four players, John Tavares, Austin Matthews, Marner, Nylander. None of them have a physical side. None of them have a physical side. They just don't. Matthews and Marner and Nylander, the four of them, and including the old guy, they kind of rub up against you and try to physically move you. But that contact, that is hockey, and watching last night, watching the game and listening to, I'm sorry, I forgot which, O-Dog, when he was talking about, that's hockey. That's hockey. Like people are going, what the heck was that? Oh my God. What, the Leafs were doing that? Where did the Leafs get that idea? And he's going, that's hockey. That's hockey. In other words, the Leafs haven't been playing hockey in this core four generation. And it's true. They haven't. They haven't had any physicality worth mentioning. And hockey is a physical sport. So this was a nice, refreshing change. Is it because Matthews was out? Is the part I'm trying to understand, Aaron, why all of a sudden in the third period of that game, they were playing that way as a team, not, sending out a guy like we've seen over the years, right? They had this guy's our tough guy. This is our contact guy. Now we're going to send him out and he's going to go hit everybody. Okay, he's back, and now we'll put the team back the way it was. That's the part that frustrates me and has frustrated me over this Austin Matthews era, where they miss chances to win the cup just because they didn't play physical enough.
And, Matthews finally got a goal to end his 12-game goalless drought. Matthias Michelli had a goal and 2 assists. John Tavares had a goal, and Benoit Olivier Grew also scored. They'd called him up for the Marlies earlier that day. Bo finally got his second NHL goal, his first against a goalie, against the team that had originally drafted him a few years back. So there's a nice little circle there.
That goal was scored in 2019.
Yeah, it's been a long, long time since Bo's had a goal. So 120 something odd games.
But he's one of the goal scoring he's one of the goal scoring leaders in the AHL. So,
yeah, he's the Marlies' lead goal scorer with 27 goals and 23 assists for 50 points in 54 games. But that's, again, that's in the AHL, which is a slightly different level here. But, I'm just puzzled as to why this guy didn't get a call up sooner. They've known what he's had for the longest time with the Marlies, basically all season. I don't know why they haven't done anything with him. So curious to see that, but I'm glad to see that he finally got a chance.
Part of the reason might be that now they can have an expanded roster.
That's true.
And they won't lose the guy. Like the problem with bringing guys from the Marlies, not all of them can go back down directly. Don't pass go, don't collect $200 and don't pass go. Some of them have to be literally waived. Right. So, yeah. So that's a good way to lose assets. And what we learned this year was the Leafs over the years have let guys go, guys that, in not free agency, on waivers, they've let them go. Many of them, right? Because they felt they were redundant, and because you have to standard that how many contracts you can have, right? And in this case, for the Leafs right now, they're going to be a little short on assets, so they can't afford to lose anybody. But a time like this when a team has played itself out of contention for a playoff spot also offers you an opportunity and a need to see what else have you got, because what you got right up here ain't working out. So what else do we have? And that's his game. That's Gru's game. He gets to come up here and show what he can do, and we'll see what that means to him the rest of this season if they'll keep him up here. And will it be one of those guys? Most of the time, what happens, Aaron, is they do really well in the first or second game, and then they don't score again for a while. So we'll see what becomes of this great first game for him. But let's talk about the delayed response. We hinted at it. We talked about the tougher nature of the team in the third period. I said a little bit there where I said I believe they didn't see what happened, right? I believe they didn't see what happened, but they also didn't automatically go to the player while their player's on the ground looking injured. You don't have to see what happened to understand something happened.
Yeah, and there's a limited number of suspects when it comes to that sort of thing as to who actually did it. More specifically, I'd be looking at the guy that's already been suspended for 21 games in the past 3 or 4 years. But yeah, Radko Gudas, especially when he went after Matthews the way that he did, as soon as you start skating directly at a player, you know that you've been beat. And it's not hard to figure out who the culprit was. The Leafs could have put 2 and 2 together and somebody could have gone over there. But it seemed like up to that point, nobody wanted to get engaged physically with Radko. And it's just not the first time that he's done this. He most recently did it in Milan to Sidney Crosby, who has been out for the past month with an injury.
He fell on him
Nylander,
awkwardly.
Yeah, well, accidentally on purpose, sort of thing.
But
I fell over, sort of thing. Now, Nylander also said, I didn't know the severity of it, and I probably should have gone in there. But at the time, I didn't understand until 15 seconds later that it was more than what I thought it was. So, yeah, I probably should have jumped in. But everybody knows that Willie's not punching anybody. And he's definitely not grabbing Radko for that sort of thing.
There were a couple of these later on in the third period when he made contact with somebody.
Chris Kreider tried to start a fight by cross-checking Calle Yarncroke in the high chest/throat off a face-off in the third period, but nobody stepped up. The funniest part was Michael Pezzetta, who they'd also called up at the same time and called up Bo Gru fighting in the first 4 seconds against Jeffrey Viel off the opening face-off. You didn't see much ice time after that because there were a lot of penalties in the game, quite frankly, but Max Domi got kicked out for chasing around Beckett Seneca. Matty Nyes trucked Michael Granlund, and Riley and Nylander both threw some pretty big hits, but not necessarily when they needed to have. And it was the lack of response, I think, that upset a lot of people the most. Berube also mentioned that the boys did talk about it in the dressing room in the second intermission before they decided that they were going to go out there and actively try to do something about it. So good on them for that, I guess. But I mean, realistically speaking, man, that all of that was too little, too late. You should have been jumping on the closest Anaheim Duck and punching them until the referee separated you. That's what it boils down to. Now, I'm not a big advocate for goonery and physical violence, but there are certain responses that need to be made, and the Leafs didn't. So.
You're beginning to sound a lot like I have the past few years. I've never been one that appreciates the importance of fighting on its own, but I have been a deep proponent of creating an atmosphere for the other team that, let's be blunt, that injury is a possibility for you if you're intending, well, even not intending, if it looks like you're trying to take one of our guys out, well, then, we're not going to be the only ones under threat, right? which is all I'm saying. I'm not, I know Brian Burke, his famous line was initiate, right? Initiate. You don't want to, don't want to be a reactor. You want to initiate. And the reason, Burke said that was because usually the person that initiates a little bit of on the line kind of play doesn't get the penalty. The person who reacts to that gets the penalty. And that's what he meant, I think, when he said initiate. And in the case of Toronto and the way they play right now, when you had the kind of team they had this year, being physical was a necessity because they were lacking in the kind of talent that you can use to drive yourself ahead in the standings. They had to be a team that didn't get worked harder. That's who they had to be. And in the third period last night, they worked harder than Anaheim. And they drew penalties because they were working harder. The penalty against Yarncroke was because Yarncroke was being very physical, with Kreider and fighting for position. And it elevated to the point where a cross-check to the net came about. So it's about not necessarily jumping over the line, but realizing there's a line there that you can run to, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Now, the good news for Anaheim is it's a phone hearing, not an in-person hearing, which means that the maximum that Radko is going to get, despite his previous history, which definitely should factor into it, the most that he's going to be eligible to receive would be 5 games. Seeing as Matthews is likely out for at least the same amount of time, if not for the remainder of the season, there's only 17 games left. Why would you risk bringing him back any sooner? You're not making the playoffs. Just shut him down and have him get better. It's one of those situations where it's like, hey, I don't know. I don't know if it's actually going to be worth it. I don't know what real discipline he's going to get for it. And I don't think he's going to change his style of play. So, with just 5 games.
He hasn't been suspended since 2019.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, there were a lot of suspensions up until then. Like, I think he served 17 games, I think, up until then. 16 or 17 games. And then he hasn't been on the radar for a while. But I think that had more to do with the teams that he played for. Because it depends what team you play for. Suspensions are dependent on who you play for and who you did something against. And anybody who wants to argue with me about that, I'll call bullshit, because there's a pattern, right? There's a pattern on how teams are treated by the National Hockey League, both as the receiver of illegal play and the deliverer of illegal play. It's just there isn't a system in place that's consistent. It seems to depend on who is doing what to what team, as in another team. That's what I see, and that's just my opinion. Can I prove it? I think I can. Do I want to? I don't care. It doesn't matter to me, because quite frankly, it doesn't mean diddly squat. The only people that can handle this situation, like if he only gets a game or two, right? If he only gets a game or two. Matthew Nyes, his first suspension was for what? 4 games?
Yeah, something like that. And
right?
Jason
and what did he do to get it?
6.
And what did he do? And what? And what did they do to get it? What did they do to get it? That's
chop on the neck that was barely anything, I think. I mean, you look at what
Matthews got suspended for one of those.
Yeah, 2 games.
Yeah. So
Gudas got 3 games for elbowing Mika Zibanejad in 2015. In 2016, he was suspended for 6 games for a preseason hit on Austin Charnick. In 2017, he got 10 games for slashing Jets forward Matthew Perreault on the back of the head. And most recently was 2019, where he got 2 games for bonking his former teammate on top of the head from behind with his stick, which is like, I mean, it's Kucherov. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. But at the same time, you don't go around whacking people in the head with your stick. It's not And the fact that he hasn't received a suspension is more a function of the fact that the Department of Player Safety is absolutely shambolic. It has really little to do with the fact that he's kept his nose clean,
Well,
as it were.
absolutely. It
You
depends
know?
who he's playing for, who he did what he did against. It's all relative. It's relative in the sense that it's all factored in. There's a bias in the NHL head office, and the guy that makes those decisions was never a clean player in his time. He was a player who shouldn't have been in the National Hockey League. He couldn't play hockey in the National Hockey League. He was there. He was a fighter, and this is the guy who's determining, right? This is a guy determining who should get penalties, and he has a bias when it comes to teams. It's clear. It's evident. It's not something that you need to guess at. So good for him. Enjoy your career, buddy. It really doesn't matter until he does something that the league doesn't like. He'll be there. What's the PR problem the Leafs have?
Well, the PR problem is that it doesn't matter what you believe. The media and the fans in Toronto are to blame for the season that Austin Matthews and the rest of the Leafs are currently having. Mitch Marner believes it. Pat Maroon believes it. You can't win with 25 microphones jammed in your face every day. That this city and its bloodthirsty reporters won't be happy until they chase every single star player out of town, which is why the Maple Leafs have gone more than 20 years without advancing past the second round of the playoffs. That's why they're like, well, maybe we should bring in Chris Pronger, because if we bring in Chris Pronger, it'll take away attention from everything else. Heading into summer free agency, the Leafs have been are looking at trying to convince Darren Radish, Rasmus Anderson, or John Carlson to sign here. But as it currently stands, based on the perception that Toronto's a terrible place to play, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. So you bring in Pronger, who is akin to Shanahan when it comes to the degree of reverence held for him around the league, and you might be able to get something done.
Would it be fair to say, and I'm going to say this just because for me it's common sense, if you had to choose whose fault it is the Leafs have been not winning Stanley Cups, if you're a player or someone hoping to be employed, whether it be as a player or any other position, isn't it easier to criticize the fans than it is to criticize the ownership?
Oh, sure. In the same reason that coaches are hired to be fired, fans are there to be shat upon. Pardon my French.
Because to say that fans and reporters are the reason why teams don't win is such bullshit. It's so crazy. The reason teams don't win has more to do with management, cap collection, however you disperse your cap, and also what we're talking about isn't the media that's the problem. It's the attention the teams have, and the media is only a conduit for that attention. Yes, they're looking for stories. Well, that's because they're playing. They're writing for a team, a town, that has all this attention. So what we come down to is get rid of all the teams in the big cities because they'll never win a cup. Why should I have a team in the big city? We'll never win a cup because the players are cowering because they might have to face a microphone. And when they're on the ice, and this is the part I really enjoy the most, the real problem is players who are bullshit players get away with not murder, but get away with poor play in towns that don't understand the game because they don't know what's going on. And what's his name? Kachuk from Florida. He basically said that. He said, you should come to Florida because people don't know what we're doing. They don't have a clue. We get paid the same amount of money if you play for Toronto. In fact, we can earn more money because of the tax system. And we end up playing for people who don't have their ass from a hole in the ground. I don't know the difference. And this guy's saying this is why you should come to play in Florida. Speaks volumes as to why Toronto hockey fans should stay away and not go to games. Because apparently, if you don't have anybody that cares, there's a better chance of winning.
Yeah, see, I don't buy that. And hey, if you're not comfortable with being the focus of attention, and you're not comfortable with that sort of thing, then that's fine. You can go and play in your rinky-dink markets. But if, there's a reason why there's so much pressure here, and the fact of the matter is, if you're not taking advantage of the media circus in the city that you're in to make yourself a whole bunch more money, you're not using the system correctly.
Well, the league won't let them do that. That's the only antidote to the problem that we have with the big cities. Is there has to be, instead of a reward for playing in a city where people don't care, there should be a reward for playing in a city where people do. And that's the unfortunate truth. Winning a Stanley Cup is irrelevant when it comes to the fans. It comes to money. Wherever the best opportunity to make more money for the NHL, that's who's going to win a cup. That's what's going to happen. And it happens because, quite frankly, it's about money. The Leafs winning a cup is not going to, well, I think it will, but to their minds, I think they think, well, the Leafs are making as much money as they can make. If they win a cup, it won't move the dial. They have no idea where the dial is. I'm going to tell you, they don't have any idea. If the Leafs won a cup, the needle wouldn't only move, it would go around in a circle, because it's just, there are so many people that would celebrate a Leaf championship. There would be so many jerseys bought. It would be crazy. The money that would be made hand over fist, they've left on the table. MLSC has left a lot of money on the table for many years.
No, they really have. But you know what? Honestly, congratulations to the Buffalo Sabres on getting closer to making it back to the dance after 14 years away. It's a shame that the Maple Leafs' longest active streak of almost 10 years is going to be ending this year when it comes to making the playoffs. But every once in a while, you got to pay the tax. And
will they make it back before 10 years?
That's the hope. I mean, we're hoping that losing out this year on the playoff revenue will force Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment to reevaluate and hopefully tweak everything so that they don't miss again.
They only need to tweak one thing. There's only one thing they need to do. They need somebody to come in, run the team that understands what it takes to win. Is it Chris Pronger? I don't know. But there has to be somebody that comes in and changes the view from below above. Like right now, I don't think this Leaf team respects the people they're playing for. That's an opinion. I don't think they again, you mentioned Buffalo. Buffalo's the example. Not a player changed, a GM changed, the guy in charge changed, not the players, nothing else. And immediately the team started winning. So he came in and said something or gave players an impression of something. The players saw something change. What was that? That's what I'd like to know, because whatever that was, jar it and ship it to Toronto, because that's what Toronto needs. They need when they talk about this culture change, isn't that what happened in Buffalo? What else could you say happened? It wasn't they changed players. It wasn't they changed coaches. It was a culture change.
It's the removal of the general manager that led to a perception amongst the players that something positive had actually been done and that potentially their concerns had been addressed. Certainly Lindy on his third stint with the Buffalo Sabres was part of it as well. But, shipping out Kevin with a Y probably changed a lot of things in the dressing room for the Buffalo Sabres, and it's been entirely to their benefit. So I can't exactly complain about that.
Absolutely. Let's go to the Jays.
Sure.
Varsho.
So yeah, Varsho was actually key to driving in a whole bunch of runs. He actually drove in 3. CJ Van Eyck gave up 6 runs in 2 1/3 innings. Trey Turner's double drove in a pair in Philadelphia's 3-run second inning. The Phillies tacked 4 more on onto Van Eyck and Angel Bastardo in the third, including a solo home run by Alex Bohm. But Dalton Varsho did a lot of the heavy lifting, driving in 3 of Toronto's 4 runs over the 4th and 5th innings with a ground out and a 2-run double. Tyler Heineman hit a solo home run in the first inning and also scored 2 runs. And Zach Pop pitched a scoreless 6th for the Phillies to earn a hold. Toronto is now 8-10 in Grapefruit League play. They face the Minnesota Twins on Friday afternoon in Dunedin. Hopefully we'll be able to get a few more wins in and get a little more of that experience under our belts before shifting to the Sky Dome in the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. How's Shane Bieber doing?
Bieber is actually doing all right. Shane Bieber was going to be starting the campaign on the injured list. He returned from Tommy John in the second half of 2025 to help the Jays get to the World Series. But he had a setback in spring training with some forearm fatigue. According to Keegan Matheson of MLB.com, the Blue Jays will be hoping to have him on the mound in about a week. He's going to continue a regular throwing schedule up until then. In a few days from now, he's 30. He's an 8-year veteran of the Cleveland Guardians and Blue Jays. He's 66-34 lifetime with a 3.24 ERA. But having him on the shelf, I think, to start the season is going to benefit them a little further down the road. So they're going to be taking it careful with him in the same sense that, you don't want to push your pitchers too hard, especially not during the grapefruit season.
Let's talk about a $210 million man. How is he going to play out?
Yeah, this is certainly going to be interesting. Cease finished second in Cy Young Award voting with the White Sox in 2024 and earned a 4th place vote in 2024 for his performance in the first 2 seasons with the San Diego Padres. He's got a career 3.88 ERA, but oftentimes has struggled with command. He is a top-tier strikeout pitcher in Major League Baseball, but it's his walks that could hurt his prestige on the mound. Dylan Cease is predicted to finish second in Cy Young voting for the American League. He's been a stuff guy, and he's always had good stuff, but with a little bit of polish. His ability to throw strikeouts could potentially morph into something fantastic. You don't find many 30-year-olds with ceiling left, but Cease has finished second for the Cy Young once before, and it looks like he's primed to do it again.
Absolutely. How about the Raps?
Yeah, they didn't do so well. Trey Murphy scored 28 points. DeJounte Murray had 27. The Pelicans beat the Raptors 122-111 on Wednesday. That was Brandon Ingram's return to the city where he played 6 seasons. Quickly had 25 for the Raptors, who have lost 6 of their last 8. They've gone from 5th to 7th in the Eastern Conference. They're 1.5 a game behind Orlando and Miami. There's been some talk about them getting a little bit soft, specifically because Jamal Shed had a bit of a testy interaction with DeJounte Murray of the Pelicans, but nobody came to back him up. With about 90 seconds left and the Pelicans leading 116-101, DeJounte was dribbling down the shot clock, matched up against Jamal Shed, but he crossed him over and pulled up for a 3-pointer. Shed broke his ankles, after which Murray stood over him and had a few words for him. And it all looked kind of disrespectful, but nobody actually came to take an issue with it. And then Darko Rajakovic called a timeout. Murray got a technical for taunting after the referees reviewed the play, but nobody actually stood up to back up Shed. So that's one of those situations where the basketball team is sort of taking after the hockey team, and that nobody seems to want to do anything or stand up for their teammates. So that's an ongoing concern.
That's amazing, Aaron, because it does definitely raise some questions, big ones, really. Let's talk about the Paralympics now.
So Canada is currently sitting 10th with 11 medals right now in the Milan Cortina Olympics. We currently have 2 gold, 3 silver, and 6 bronze. we actually had Natalie Wilkie earn her second gold and fourth medal of the Paralympics with a win in the women's biathlon standing sprint pursuit on Friday. It's been fantastic for Wilkie. Both of her gold medals so far have come in the biathlon. She came into the games with 7 Paralympic medals in para-Nordic skiing, but none in the biathlon part of it. So that's definitely a positive sign. In wheelchair curling, Canada came back to defeat South Korea 8-7 in the semifinals and advanced to Saturday's gold medal game. They are 9-0 in the Olympics so far, which has been a fantastic result for them. The Canadians will face the United States, who beat Czechia 6-1 in the other semifinal for gold on Sunday. So, I'm sorry, and I apologize. That's for the para ice hockey team, who had a 4-2 semifinal win over China this afternoon. So, Canada will be facing the States for gold on Sunday in wheelchair sledge hockey. Sorry.
Talk to me about curling.
Team Canada being skipped by Anderson is looking to win the Worlds. Starting on Sunday, she'll have a chance to represent her country at the World Championships in Calgary. She's going to be skipping a team with Val Sweeting, Sharon Burchard, and Carly Burgess. So they get to enjoy the full experience this time around, bubble free, because the last time they were at the World Championships like that was during the COVID. So not only are they going to have a slightly more wide open field this time around, but there's a good opportunity for them to make sure that they cement their legacy. Talk to me about tennis. So Victoria Mboko crushed Anisimova in the round of 16 to move on. That was the 6th seeded Amanda Anisimova, 6-4, 6-1 on Tuesday. Now she advances to the women's singles quarterfinals, where she'll face Aryna Sabalenka, who defeated Naomi Osaka 6-2, 6-4. It's a rematch of the Australian Open round of 16, which was won by Sabalenka in straight sets. So that looks to be interesting.
My goodness, Trump says Iranian players are not safe at the World Cup. Wow.
Yeah, this is one of those things where he said, Iran's football team is welcome at the World Cup, but I really don't think it's appropriate for them to be here for their sake of their life and safety. Which seems rather ominous coming from the president of the United States, who initially bombed Iran in the first place. Now, Iran had already qualified for the World Cup and has been placed in a group with New Zealand, Belgium, and Egypt. All of Iran's group stage matches were scheduled to be played in the United States, who are hosting the tournament, obviously, with Canada and Mexico. The issue here is that with escalating global tensions, in particular with the 12-day-old war on Iran that United States has backed Israel on, this throws a lot into question when it comes to the World Cup and does raise the stakes and make things potentially more difficult.
Do you think they would be any safer in Mexico or Canada?
Probably.
I don't think.
I mean, realistically speaking, I'd like to see them. I'd like to see those games shifted, but not my decision to make.
Well, the World Cup organization is going to have some say in what happens there, because the last thing they want to do is make a team play somewhere and then have something bad happen. Do you know what I mean? Like it's great that we all want nothing bad to happen, and I hope that's the case, that we all want nothing bad to happen. But there's a lot of anxiety brought on by a president who his main sales pitch is anxiety. So having that actually become something in the country, he's done it before. I mean, January 6th is a prime example of what he says and how it creates an atmosphere for something bad to happen. And I wouldn't blame Iran if they decided, for the safety of their players, they pulled out. I don't know what would happen if they pulled out, but that would be something to wonder about, and which is why the question about would they be safe in Mexico or Canada came up, because that's probably an option they're going to need.
Oh, 100%.
I believe. All right, let's talk about the PWHL, Aaron.
So the Ottawa Charge have signed goaltender Caitlin Ross to a 10-day standard player agreement. Ross, originally from Red Cliff, Alberta, is a graduate of Mount Royal. and arrives to the charge with a career 1.4 goals against to go along with a 937 save percentage after 5 years at Mount Royal, where she's the all-time winningest goaltender for their hockey program. And now this isn't the first time PWHL fans have heard Ross's name. She actually did earn an invite to the Boston Fleet Camp earlier this season. She brings experience from both the university level as well as internationally, where she represented Canada at the International University Sports Federation Winter World University Games. This signing is to help solidify depth and goal, while Seni Ahola remains home in Ottawa for rest and maintenance. The Charge are returning to the ice tomorrow in Vancouver to face off against the Golden Eyes, so we can catch that. Also, the PWHL is returning to Detroit. This is fueling a push to bring NCAA women's hockey to Michigan. It's one of the top talent producers for the women's game in the nation. But University of Michigan doesn't have a Division I NCAA women's hockey team at the school. So that's something that's rather interesting. The push also involves Denise Illich. Illich is a member of the Board of Regents at the University of Michigan and a member of the of the Illich family, who also own the NHL's Detroit Red Wings. Now, it would be interesting to see if the PWHL gets involved in Detroit, because there's also word that the Ottawa Senators are willing to partner with the Ottawa Charge in order to keep them in Ottawa while the university that they're currently playing, while the arena that they're currently playing at undergoes renovations over the next 2 to 3 seasons. So if anything comes out of this, I'm sure we'll be more than happy to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, and the PWHL is a league that's trending upward, right? The question
100%.
is, are there the appropriate facilities in place for them to have some success, and come across, like, where they play has to be professional, if you know what I mean. Like, it's got to be a place where they can sell as professional hockey. The women deserve it. The league deserves it. But you can't invent facilities that aren't there. So what you have in Ottawa is they're trying to upgrade one so it meets that kind of standard. And if Detroit gets one, again, it's difficult to play in the NHL arena because of the cost of playing in the NHL arena. And I know this points to the fact that the PWHL teams aren't as popular as NHL teams. That's a reality, but it's one that can be built on, right? The reality of what they are right now can be built on. Just as the quality of the players has increased, it has increased in the past few years visually. You can see it. It's in real time. We've watched women play better and better hockey. That is a simple fact. If you are somebody who watches every game played, you may not notice it as much, because I don't watch every game played, and I watch every so often. I'll watch a game, and the difference, it's like when you don't see somebody's child, right? Or a pet, right? You see the dog when they're 6 weeks, then you see the dog when they're 2 years old, then you see them when they're 6, and you're going, wow, that's, you notice the progress. But if you have the dog, you notice it less. Not that you don't, but you do notice it less. Let's go to the National Hockey League and let's talk about those Sens that are making a charge for a playoff spot, and they tried making it at the Montreal team's expense. They came up a little short in that game, didn't they, Aaron?
They did, unfortunately. What with Alexander Tessier tying it up at the 17:29 mark of the second period, followed by Ivan Demidov, who's continuing his stellar season, getting his 14th goal with assists by Newhook and Caden Gooley at 12:40 of the third. That cemented it for them. The problem that we have here is the Senators are at risk of being one of the best NHL teams ever to actually miss the playoffs. Based on the strength of the division that they're in, they are close, but still so far. Buffalo and Tampa are virtually...
None of the Western teams would be in the playoffs if they were in the Atlantic Division.
And that's what kills me. The Atlantic Division has only seen 9 regulation losses in the last 10 games combined between Montreal, Boston, Detroit, and Ottawa. 5 of those regulation losses belong to Detroit, which probably makes them the most catchable team for Ottawa, considering their 2 games in hand and head-to-head matchup with the Wings is remaining. But man, like, this is one of those situations where it's absolutely ludicrous to think that, the major contenders we're looking at are Montreal, Detroit, Pittsburgh, New York, the Islanders, that is, not the Rangers, Boston, Columbus, and Ottawa. Ottawa actually had a 55.8% chance of making it, but one loss to Montreal has actually dropped their chances from 55.8% to 40.6%. But they're still in the top 10 to win the cup at 4.5% if they do actually make the playoffs. Now, the cutoff is supposed to be 96 to 98 points so far this season. Ottawa will need to win 13 of their remaining 18 games or pull 26 points out of the 36 that are available. It's doable, but again, they're one of the better teams that could potentially not make the playoffs, which is just bonkers to me.
The Leafs are 5 points out of a playoff spot. Sorry, 3 points out of a playoff spot in the Western Division.
Well, if we were
As
back in the
horrible
Western
as
Division
they
again,
are,
that may be.
I'm just saying, the 3 points out of a playoff spot. That's the difference. The Western Division used to be so strong before, but this Atlantic Division, and the Atlantic Division's the stronger of the two divisions in the East, and the Western Division. I wish I could separate it, but it doesn't matter anyway. The point is, at this point, the teams in the Atlantic Division are that much better than the rest of the teams' divisions, right? Which speaks to the fact that they're very competitive organizations. And now with Buffalo joining the rush, if you will, and Montreal and Ottawa's sort of been lingering in this same position for years. Both Buffalo and Montreal, even though Montreal made the playoffs last year and Ottawa did not, there was still, Ottawa did as well. There's this thing that has the Atlantic Division being a very tough division to survive in. And you're playing most of your games against that division. So you need to win in that division. And that's, again, the difficulty when those teams play outside the division, they do well. We've got ourselves the Sens, who had to forfeit a first-round pick, staying on the Sens, Aaron. The league decided to give them back the first-round pick, but it's the last in the first-round pick.
Yeah. So the way it works is there was a trade that they tried to pull off for Evgeny Dadonov in July of 2021 that got nullified because somebody didn't do their homework and figure out which teams were on the no trade list for him before submitting it. So the NHL said, well, you've been bad boys and we're going to strip you of your draft pick for 2026, 2027. But as it stands, they've reevaluated. They are going to get the 32nd overall pick in the first round. After the league decided their change of ownership affected what the appropriate punishment should be, they're also going to pay a fine of 1 million Canadian dollars. Now, that means that even if Ottawa misses the playoffs and wins the draft lottery, it's going to result in a redraw. And if they do move up in the draft standings, it just means that they're going to be automatically bumped to the end of the round, and everybody else is going to shift up one.
It happens to be the position the Stanley Cup champion usually gets after the year.
Ironic, don't you think?
Well, they could actually earn that spot if they try real hard. Let's talk about the Jets now.
Yeah, the Jets got doubled up by the Rangers. Alex Lafreniere had a goal and an assist to lead the Rangers past the Jets 6-3. Rough, man. This is New York's third straight win. The Jets have lost their second in a row to drop to 3-2 in their critical 8-game homestand. There was a significant amount of zone time that they had, but they couldn't put the puck in the net. The Rangers are now 27-30-8 for 62 points on the season, which is, funnily enough, identical to the Winnipeg Jets. But whereas the Rangers are currently sitting dead last in the East, the Jets are currently 6 points out of a wild card spot in the West. So, bit of a difference.
Absolutely. Talk to me about the Flames.
So the Flames actually managed to hold off the Devils. They made a late charge, but they managed to hold them off for a 5-4 win. This is something that Calgary needed. They were actually up 5-2 at the start of the third after Michael Backlund scored 4 minutes and 10 seconds in. But goals by Jack Hughes at 9:38 and Luke Hughes with 4 seconds remaining made the game a lot closer than I think Calgary was willing to. Of note is the fact that Matt Coronado, who was a wonderkind earlier in the year for the Calgary Flames, is now in the middle of a 13-game goalless drought. He's managed just 2 assists in those 13 games. But for a player that's known primarily for a scoring touch, it's one of those things that kind of makes you raise your eyebrows. I mean, the fundamentals are there. You know, he's taken 160 shots, I think, so far this season. So it's not like he's not getting the opportunities. They just don't seem to be dropping for him. A lot of it, I think, is that he's regressing towards the mean after having been shooting the lights out earlier in the year. He did sign a 7-year, $45.5 million contract extension with Calgary this season, carrying an annual cap hit of $6.5 million. The problem now is finding it. He's skating well. He's staying engaged in the play. He's getting to the most dangerous areas of the ice. He's generating a high volume of shots, but unfortunately, they're just not going in for him. So it's a question of whether or not he can break the slump over the next couple of games to help him and help his team out.
Sounds like he has Matthews-itis.
Definitely.
Oilers.
Yeah, they got their show run by the Dallas Stars. Dallas ended up winning going away. They jumped out to a 5-0 lead. Ben Steele, Robertson, and Wyatt Johnson scored going up to the 6:15 mark of the second period before Evan Bouchard finally got on the board, followed by Jason Dickinson. But that was all she wrote. With a goal a minute and 32 seconds in, and then a goal with a minute and 3 left. The Stars managed to salt it away. I got so bad at one point that McDavid actually started chucking knuckles, but unfortunately, too little, too late, I think. And you can't have your star player. You can't have your star player throwing knuckles like that, especially not McDavid. He's had bad luck with glass and hands.
Well, he wants to win so bad. You know, I mean, that guy's willing to do anything to win. And it's too bad that he's going through this. It must be very stressful for him. He's only a human being, and everything he's done for Canada this past year and a bit, it's appreciated what he's done. And the guy's just not getting the flowers, right? He's digging. He's just not getting any flowers, and that's too bad. Let's talk about the Canucks.
So they finally managed to win one. It's been a while for them. They ended up tied after the first period with the Nashville Predators, with Brock Besser putting up his 16th and Tyson Jost getting his 5th. End of the third didn't solve anything. Tyson Jost and Matthew Wood scored again in the second period to give Nashville a 3-1 lead heading into the third. But Marco Rossi and Philip Hronek responded for the Canucks. At the end of the day, winning in a shootout was a good thing for them. It took a lot longer, I think, than people expected. But by the end of the day, this is, I think, something that Vancouver desperately needed. Now, it doesn't help with Nashville, who are currently sitting a point out of a wild card spot behind the San Jose Sharks. But the Canucks have only got 48 points on the season, which is just rough.
Well, they got a good chance to pick up a really good player. And this one's off the board, but I thought I'd mention it. The San Jose Sharks have announced that they have signed 24-year-old former NC AA goaltender Kyle Chauvette to an amateur tryout contract, and he will be backup starter for Alex Nedeljkovic for tonight's game against the Boston Bruins because their starting goaltender got hurt. So they needed somebody, and the Zamboni driver doesn't have a pair of skates. So they had to revert to finding somebody who did play hockey at some point in his life. In fact, a few years ago, he played in the NCAA. So he's going to be sitting on the bench here, and he won't be the guy between the pipes unless. So this is a kind of return to the Zamboni goaltender.
Kind of, sort of. I think it's a very similar situation. Now, it's obviously not going to be a miracle story.
No.
But, he was named as an ECAC third-team All-Star in 24-25. The fact of the matter is, because he doesn't have any pro experience, he's eligible to dress for San Jose as an e-bug, which is good. He finished second last in his university conference, logging a .902 save percentage and a 2.63 goals against average in 34 appearances with a 13-19-1 record and 5 shutouts. But he had he'll probably end up with a few different contract offers, at least in the SPHL, if not in the ECHL or AHL. Hopefully he won't get pressed into service. So
absolutely,
yeah, it's interesting.
Thanks for doing this, Aaron. He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanishi. Thanks for watching, everybody.